There is a lot of alarm about the glaciers in the Himalayas melting at a highly accelerated pace. And there are fears that if the glaciers dry up, these are the sources of the Himalaya, of the rivers like the Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra. And if the glaciers dry up, the rivers will dry up, there will be total famine, there will be economic devastation for 400 million people in North India, and there might be wars, water wars have been predicted between China and India, between Pakistan and India over scarce water, that these are the prospects that face us because of the retreat of the glaciers. Even if one day all the glaciers disappear, snow and rain will continue to fall. So the flow in the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Indus will remain almost completely the same, even if the glaciers go. This had not been understood. In 2007, IPCC said all the Himalayan glaciers might disappear by 2035. At that point, the Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh appointed RENA to produce a report on the state of the glaciers. What did the RENA report say? The RENA report says, well, the glaciers have, of course, been melting since the end of the last ice age, but far from any acceleration, the rate of melting has actually decelerated. So far from there being a growing crisis, if anything, it is decreasing. And the most famous glacier is the Gangotri Glacier, the second largest in the Himalayas, holy to Hindus. And this at one point of time, people said, oh my God, this is retreating at 40 meters every year. But the fact is that in the current century, the rate of retreat has retreated to only 10 meters per year on average. And therefore, this 30-kilometer glacier will last 3,000 years more at the rate of melting of 10 meters per year. In fact, there's an ISRO report, which the government often uses in giving official replies. It monitored the Himalayas between 2000 and 2010. It said that of 2018 glaciers, as many as 1,752 are stable, neither retreating nor advancing. 248 are retreating, definitely. And 18 of them are advancing, the ones in the high Karakorams. And why is this? Why do we notice this thing? Partly because at very, very high altitudes, above 4,000 meters, even in the middle of summer, there is no melting, while there is some winter snow. And that is why winter snow can exceed summer melt. And 18 glaciers are therefore advancing in the highest of Himalayas. And in fact, even when everything else is gone, the highest glaciers may never melt because of the high altitude. People say the glacier is the source. People think that's where all the water comes from. Sorry, the source of water in the Ganga is every drop of rain that falls on the entire Ganges basin. The Ganges Brahmaputra basin is 1 million square kilometers. It includes the rainiest places in the world, like Cherrapunji. Therefore, we find that 95% of the flow of the Ganges is accounted for rainfall. The flow of the glaciers accounts for only 1% in the case of the Indus and less than 1% in the case of the Ganges and of the Brahmaputra. These figures came out in a recent piece of research by Mr. R.L. Armstrong of the University of Colorado. Earlier on, there was no way of distinguishing between the contribution of different things to the flow, especially between snow melt and glacial melt. What's happened is lots of people mistook snow melt for glacial melt. Now, the fact is glaciers occupy a very tiny part of the Himalayas, whereas snow falls on hundreds or thousands of times as large an area as that of the glaciers. Now, the good thing is this: even if one day all the glaciers disappear, snow and rain will continue to fall. So the flow in the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Indus will remain almost completely the same, even if the glaciers go. This had not been understood. I think perhaps there's one additional point to be made. People like Brahmachalani who have talked about water wars, they've said that even if the flow, even if rain is the main source most of the year, there is this lean season of February to May when the river is at its lowest. That is the point where, for instance, we had to assure minimum flow to Bangladesh. So they say glaciers are important in this minimum, this lean season flow. That's when the war will happen. Sorry, that's wrong. Even in that time, there is virtually no glacial melt. At that particular point, it is the snow that is melting. The snow falls, first of all, the snow on land melts, then snow on the glaciers melts. Only then the glaciers are exposed, and the glaciers start melting in June, July, August, September. Only in those 4 months, all the glacial melt takes place. And that is the time when the monsoon is coming anyway. So even in the lean season, the glaciers are not important. We are saying there is global warming, and because of that, overall, there is a melting of glaciers. But the glaciers are retreating, if I may use a pun, at a glacial pace. It's extremely slow. I mean, people seem to think that this galloping heat. Sir, global warming in the last 20 years has gone up by 0.2 degrees centigrade. It is not a galloping rate. It may be higher than before, but global warming is rising at this kind of rate of maybe 0.1% per decade. That is the rate of global. So, we need to worry about that for other reasons. And in any case, I find it is mostly the other way around. Far from people not worrying enough, there is, I think, an excessive paranoia about this global warming. That is part of the reason why right now people are saying, oh, don't have any coal-based power plants. Do you see that the power shortage we are having today already? If you stop building coal-based power plants, are you going to do without power for the next 10 years because you are worried about what will be the temperature in the year 2100? So we have to worry about the current also. As of now, let us celebrate the good news. Let us celebrate the good news that the glaciers are not retreating faster. The rivers are not going to run dry. There are not going to be any wars over scarce glacial water. Nobody is questioning whether or not there is global warming or whether there is glacial melting. All that we are saying is none of that amounts to a crisis, either in terms of the rivers drying up or in the notion of wars over that. Whatever the other reasons, now global warming can have various effects on the climate. Now, for instance, the real problem will be, suppose the rainfall decreases very sharply. Now, that would be far more important issue than anything on the glaciers. On there, however, the meteorological department has just given its long-range forecast. And from 21 to 30, rainfall is going to be higher than in 2010 to 20, and it's going to be even higher from 2030 to 2040. So the current forecast, using all the models, even with the global warming, we are going to get increasing rainfall. So while there may be various other problems, on the basis of rainfall, drying up rivers, there we need not have any fear. That is the good news. It does not mean you do nothing about global warming, which has other implications. But just on this limited thing, let us say, hooray, we don't have a problem here. India has been very successful we have accelerated our solar and wind and small hydro programs. As a result of that, 50% of your capacity was non-fossil fuel by 2022. So that was a good achievement. You need to do much more, but the pace so far would have surprised anybody at the 2015 Paris summit. Nobody would have thought that India could have built up this much renewable capacity by 2022. Going forward, we need to keep at this on a much larger scale. I'm glad to say that also on transportation, electric vehicles are already here. Tata has just got an award of 40,000 electric trucks, can you believe it, from Amazon and other people for city delivery. So electric vehicles are here, solar energy, wind energy. We need to focus on these and expand them as fast as we can. Meanwhile, we must not neglect the fact that until enough of this comes up, we have to keep investing in coal-based or gas-based thermal power also. That may be in due course phased out by 2050, but certainly for the next 10 years, we are going to require fossil fuel power. In fact, our target is that 50% of our entire consumption will be by renewables by 2030. So it doesn't mean that fossil fuels are going to disappear. So there has been a neglect. Above all, the neglect has been coal. India has the third largest coal reserves in the world, and yet we are massive importers of coal. Is that not a disgrace? It's rather like saying Kuwait is the third largest producer of oil, and Kuwait should be importing oil. I mean, can you imagine such a stupidity? So with these massive reserves of coal, we have not been able to tap those. Where we have tapped the coal mines, very often the railway links were not there, the road links were not there, environmental clearances. So we need to do something very, very quickly. So in the now some Greens may be horrified. Oh my God, what are you doing? You're producing more coal. I said, look, you are going to need some coal till 2050. That particular coal, better that comes out of Indian soil than you import the whole thing. That is where the lack of energy security comes. So for the next 30 years, we are going to need coal. We are going to need gas. Go ahead on that. And at the same time, go full flat out on renewables at the same time, so that by 2050, we will be in a different position.